If you could take your seats. All right. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for showing up. We really appreciate your participation and your time. My name is Jim Minnick. I'm the Imperial County Planning Director, and I will start out this workshop, and then I will be handing it off in a minute. So the structure of the workshop is between 6 and 6:25. We're going to do an overview presentation. From 6:25 to 6:45 is questions, and then from 6:45 to 8 o'clock is open house. All these times are kind of fluid, so if we need to spend a little bit more time on questions, not a problem. That's what we're here for. If I'm wordy at the beginning, well, you're stuck with me, so that's okay. All right. A little bit of background. This project started in January of last year when we issued an RFP requesting proposals for the development of a specific plan called the Lithium Valley Specific Plan, along with a programmatic EIR. It got a boost in June of 2022 when the state of California passed Assembly Bill 125. That law allowed for a couple of things, namely it allowed for the granting of lithium resources as well as funding for the development of this plan, which we appreciate immensely from the state of California. Continuing on, in July, the county approved the company DUDAC for the preparation of environmental impact report, along with RIC Engineering. You'll learn more about them in a few minutes. November, we also started an engagement for organizations, and then we have a health impact assessment that will also be worked on, as well as the fact that we are proposing to have our draft documents ready by the end of 2023. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Mooney of RIC Engineering to present the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. First of all, can anybody hear me? Excellent, excellent. And secondly, thank you for coming. I'm very excited to see all of you here, a great turnout, and a very, very important project in relationship to the Imperial Valley and really the entire country. And so it's an extremely important project to go through. I'm going to make this presentation with my team member, Shannon Bear. So Shannon, why don't you walk over here with me? So we're going to tag team this presentation. Every once in a while it gets boring just listening to an old guy speak, so ultimately I want to make sure that the smarter young people speak too. But first of all, my name is Brian Mooney. I'm a managing principal of the RIC Engineering Company. I oversee all the planning efforts for all of our offices in the western United States. However, I also want to mention that I have been working in the Imperial Valley for the last 50 years in a wide range of different things, including the renewable energy and transmission elements and a number of other projects over the years. We will be doing the master plan. We call it a specific plan, and it's a state document ultimately that bridges between a general plan and zoning. And ultimately, it is going to change land uses on this property. The property is approximately 50,000 acres. We'll go in a little more detail on that. And on my team, also, we have Falcon, and Falcon is a group that's going to be at the environmental justice side. Victor is over there waving his hands if you want to see him. And Aida, they are basically going to be standing at the environmental justice when we break into breakout, so they're an important part. City thinkers. Diego Velasco is an urban designer, because ultimately in a specific plan and a master plan, we're going to be looking at how the area is built out, because we're looking at, many millions of square feet potentially of manufacturing. So it isn't just about the renewable energy, the geothermal like that, the lithium extraction, but then ultimately there's processing and ultimately manufacturing and potential jobs. We're partnered with DUDEC, and DUDEC is also a nationally known firm based in San Diego doing environmental impact analysis, environmental impact reports, environmental impact statements under CEQA and NEPA. And then under them, because there's so many different technical issues we're dealing, you'll also see Kaufman engineers to deal with things like the grid system in relationship to how that has to be handled. Rail pros, because we see that there's going to have to be an extension. Goods movement is going to be part of this overall process. And then Mead and Hunt, because we also are looking at airport capacity, because we think that may be a key aspect in relationship to it. So that's the organization of the team. Now, before I get into this, although Jim talked a little bit, what we're going to do is basically a 20-minute presentation, and then we're going to stop for questions, if there's any questions, or somebody wants to make a comment, but you'll only be given 2 to 3 minutes, and you'll have to come over to this site here to make your comment, because that way we can record you. If there are no questions, or very few, then we're going to go into the second part of this process, which is there'll be technical specialists with each one of these issues for you to come and either ask questions, make comments, and direct us. This whole session is about us listening to you and hearing what you think the issues are so that we can go into it. Now, with that, I'm going to move to the side and turn it to Shannon.
Good evening, everyone. As Brian mentioned, I'm Shannon Baer with Rick Engineering. I just personally want to thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate you coming in person. Having those one-on-one conversations are really meaningful to us and really valuable throughout this process. So thank you all. I'm just going to go over a very brief overview of the project process, kind of these 6 phases or 7 phases. So right now we're at the very beginning of this process. We're in the project initiation and data collection phase, which is why we're all here tonight, to collect that data from you all. You all are experts in this area. And then once we have all of our data, then we move into the existing conditions reports, which is what we're starting to draft now. Once we have all that data collected, we wrap it into reports. We have an infrastructure assessment and a baseline report. That's what we're going into now, and that will also include community engagement, which includes this. It includes 2 technical advisory groups, which one is associated to infrastructure, and one is associated with land use and development. And then we also have an environmental justice working group. So along this whole process, we have lots of community engagement opportunities. Each of those are designated with a star. And then in spring 2023, we'll move into the land use alternatives phase, so deciding what types of land uses may be allowed in what areas of the specific plan area. And then once we have a preferred land use alternative in the summer of 2023, we'll move into the draft specific plan. And as Brian mentioned, that's that state document full of policies. It's going to have a land use plan circulation. It's going to address infrastructure, all the implementation measures. And then that's going to be the document that the draft programmatic EIR is going to analyze. So then we move into that phase in fall of 2023. And then both the specific plan and the EIR will go out for a approximately 60-day public review period where anyone can read the document and submit formal comments that then have to be responded to. So that will be in early 2024. And then once we have all those comments, we will prepare a final draft of the specific plan and a final programmatic EIR in the spring of 2024. And that will then go to hearing and lead to certification of those documents. So that's just an overview of the project process. Then we're going to get into just a very high level of the existing conditions that we've already found, and then all these comments, the constraints and opportunities, are located in the exhibits in the back that have further details. So we'll just kind of give you a brief overview.
So we're going to go through the stations right now. One of the stations is land use, and we're looking at the existing conditions of the land uses. We identify what we think are the constraints, and whether it's compliance with airport land use, infrastructure issue, there is no infrastructure out there, compatibility with some of the natural resources that are there that are so important to the region, and sensitive environmental lands, particularly cultural resources as it relates to the tribes. But then there's the opportunities. Obviously, this is the area has been defined because of the known geothermal resources that are there. So when you look at the boundaries of this site, and we are somewhat flexible on that too, we actually have been talking about expanding the boundary somewhat for certain infrastructure aspects. Looking at housing, we don't see housing as part of the specific plan itself, but how that will affect the surrounding areas in relationship to land use. Does that mean that we may see opportunities in Nyland or Calipatria or Brawley or Westmoreland? So those are types of things that we're looking at in relationship to it. Agriculture is still a key piece in this whole aspect. So how can the plan move forward and still allow for agriculture to happen as it has in the past, and balance between those two things? So roads and things of that nature are very important to us.
So another station we'll have is economics and jobs, which is obviously a very important aspect of this whole project. So some of the constraints, obviously these particular types of jobs may require specialized training and education that may be required. All the housing that may be required for workforces is located in areas further away in the urbanized areas. That's seen as a constraint. And then lots of these manufacturing types of land uses may be susceptible to supply chain disruptions, but a lot of opportunities here. So we're seeing a huge quantity of lithium deposits in this area, which can create a lot of good job opportunities. Educational institutions can benefit from this if they're creating tailored education opportunities for youth and young adults, looking at coordination with IVC and SDSU. And then, the renewable energy types of jobs offer good quality and a good amount of quantity of employment possibilities. So just some high-level constraints and opportunities related to economics and jobs.
I want to emphasize, as I said, that we're really trying to reach out to all groups. The institutions such as IVC and San Diego State have been in a lot of the meetings already in relationship to looking at that, so that's going to be a key piece. Public service and resources also. This is an area that has very little in the form of public services, whether it's infrastructure for sewer or water, or whether it's police force and fire. So those are areas that we're really going to have to look at. Do we create a new special service district, or do we find a way to expand one of the existing areas? We don't have an answer for that yet, but I know we were on a phone call yesterday with Calipatria said, we might be interested, particularly from our wastewater department, to looking at expansion. So these are the types of questions we're really looking at for the public services and resources.
So transportation, it's also related to goods movement, so we've included airports, rail, freight, all of that in here as well. So a major constraint will be the roads. A lot of them are unpaved and really narrow, which may not be able to support the types of cargo trucks coming from these types of uses. The bridges is a big constraint here. A lot of them don't have the capacity to handle those types of trucks and equipment. And then the airport, the primary use is general aviation, military, and small-scale cargo. So that's going to be a constraint in looking at possibly expanding that to other types of uses. And then there's no local air traffic control, so that's just another constraint and hurdle to look at. Some opportunities, the existing road network is in a grid fashion, so that's helpful for east-west and north-south connections. The roadways have plenty of road capacity or can handle a decent amount more trips. And then there's a bridge replacement project that's already been funded for Brant Road, which is a good opportunity there. And then another big opportunity is to work with SCAG. We've been coordinating with them, and there's potential in including these project aspects into their regional plan for transit improvements.
And then we have the infrastructure station, and the infrastructure station is going to look at all wide ranges of that, from the transmission lines. Telecommunication is non-existent in this area, and if you're going to create a major employment center that's going to be high-tech and it's going to be looking for 50 years into the future, telecommunications is going to be a critical issue. Stormwater, between the Alamo and the New River in relationship to that. So understanding those areas and what sort of infrastructure will be needed. And then ultimately, probably one of the things that we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at is water supply. And water supply is a constraint that we know, that we understand. We've been talking with the IID about that, at least in a very preliminary one. So that's got to be an area that we have to take over. On the opportunity side, ultimately, we see that you have an existing transmission system there that can be worked with. You even have some stormwater structures there, and we have even the basis, as I heard from IID yesterday, the beginning of transmission poles that can be utilized for telecommunications, so that there's a number of different aspects in relation. We may need to create policies in relationship to land use that looks at conserving water to ultimately have it going towards this, if we can confirm that we're going to be able to create these jobs. So infrastructure will be a critical piece of the overall specific plan in this process that we're examining.
So environmental justice and social conditions. There's obviously a lot of constraints, but these are just a few that we've noted here. The public data that we have to use may be skewed without undocumented workers. The population data shows decline, which may indicate out-migration. The agricultural jobs around here can be seasonal, and thus we have a fluctuating workforce. There's also just the obvious social barriers to resources. For example, language barriers, income gaps, broadband limitations, and then obviously the big public health concerns affecting disadvantaged communities at higher rates. So some of the opportunities that we found is that with having disadvantaged communities designations can allow for those communities to receive higher priority in different investments. And then there's a higher percentage of the population at the prime working age, so that's an opportunity there. And then there's funds that will be going towards restoration of the Salton Sea, which can help improve the public health concerns. And then with education institutions, having programs to feed into these highly skilled jobs can be a really good opportunity.
And then finally, 7, which is the California Environmental Quality Act. That process and may be the National Environmental Policy Act too. We know right now we're committed to a programmatic environmental impact report, which will examine everything from the air quality issues in relationship to that, down to the biological resources, the cultural resources, and making sure that we meet all the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act to move this project forward. That will be Dudex Road. We have a member of the staff here that's going to be at the environmental station in relationship to answering questions. We're doing a health risk assessment as part of this process. The county will also do a health impact assessment. So there's 2 different levels in relationship to focusing on that. We're going to be looking at a wide range of mitigation approaches from the standpoint of all the foreseeable impacts associated. We will be dealing and going to the reservations to deal with the tribes, and that's a key thing. We do understand that we have federally protected species in this area. We do understand the importance of the migration of the birds coming in this aspect, so the avian aspect of these whole things. We also know about the geologic fault aspect and seismicity, and so that's another area that we'll be looking at. All of these have to be studied as part of this process that's going to go on for a year and a half. And tonight is really about introducing you to the issues, learning from you some of those aspects, and then also hearing your comments. Now, we're going to move to the open house, but before we do, and this is a chance for you to go there, I have about 15 to 20 minutes to take questions or comments. I do need you to come up to this microphone because we're recording it. So do I have anybody that has a question or comment that would like to start the process? Could you please come up to the microphone?
I'm going to interrupt real quick. For a little housekeeping, those of you who need a little bit of private time, the restrooms are that way. That was quite an issue earlier, so.
And thank you very much for standing in line in that. If you would give us your name and address so we can have that recorded, but please step up to the microphone. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Flowers. I live in the Salton City area. My question is, I feel like they did all this analysis before they started allowing the agricultural area in the vicinity to start dumping its pollutants into the Salton Sea. And I feel like they knew what the pollutants, the effect that they would have in the long run. And I feel like before they took the water away from the Salton Sea, they knew what the effects on the community would be because of this research or, analysis that are supposed to be done. So my question is, this time, when they start drilling and looking for lithium, what's going to be exposed in the air? And this time, who is going to be criminally and financially liable for harm to the community as a result?
Excellent questions. And again, I don't have answers for everything. That's why we're here, is to learn what those questions are going to be about. I will tell you that obviously you can go back to, there's a famous book published in the 60s called Silent Spring, and understanding, we didn't really understand all of the impacts of pesticides, which we used in our agricultural products, which created those problems. But that's what we're here to find out in relationship to, are we going to have, first of all, what's the baseline of the environmental factors that we have out there in relationship to the pollution? 2, and how is it affecting the existing population? 2, then what is the impacts of this project as it goes forward in relationship to public health, air quality, and all these other ones. So those are the things we're going to be studied.
So-
As far as the liability, I can't answer that right now, but that's one of the things we'll take a look at in relationship to it. Obviously, we'll work with, but we want to make sure this is a very transparent process and hearing your questions that we can study those issues.
So if you, in your analysis, discover that it is going to create an even worse or a different type of health issue for the community, does that mean you will no longer drill for lithium there?
The answer to that question is that would be, I can give you a general answer, and that would be that we would find there's a significant adverse impact if we find that's the case. And then ultimately, we don't do the drilling. We're an outside consultant doing the studies. And then we would report to the planning department and the board of supervisors and saying, we've identified a health problem that needs to be dealt with. And this is the mitigation factor, or you shouldn't approve the project. So that's one of the things. We would go through that analysis and we'd make a recommendation to your board of supervisors on how to move forward.
So is there like a percentage as to how much damage can be done for you to decide that it shouldn't be done?
At this stage, there's no percentages, there's no profiles or anything like that.
Well, no, but I'm thinking if you are doing the analysis, like at every point, there's like, oh, you can only have this percentage of harm before we consider it unadvisable to do that. So do you have a percentage of harm? Not saying that you know what it is for this project. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, do you have a percentage of harm that it could cause the community that you would advise them against it?
We do not have any percentage. If there's a public health hazard, we'll identify that public health hazard. There is no percentages in what we're doing. And that won't be a study that we do. That's where the health risk assessment comes in, and then also the health impact assessment. But thank you very much for your question. And please, when you go, there's a station over there adding those comments to the station, and so we can respond to it. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Dylan Charles. My wife and I, kind of loud. My wife and I own a property, 76 Nyland Avenue. My questions are in regards to employment. I've seen that there's going to be local hiring practices. How does that work? What positions are going to be hired for? And what would I need to do as an individual to make sure I'm in the correct position to get employment?
Well, great questions. Again, this is very, very early in the stage. So the very first thing we're trying to figure out is how many jobs and what kind of jobs are going to be taking place of that. And that's one of the things we'll be studying, looking forward to it. Everything we see is a commitment from the users, again, assuming that they can solve the problems that we've been talking about and we'll be studying, that they'll be advertising and trying to hire locally associated with all of those. So that will be continued public, but that's still going to be a couple of years down the road. This is at the very beginning of this process right now.
Okay. I saw an article about a project that they're working on with IVC, some training course that they're developing. Do you know anything about that?
We do. I can't say I know a lot, but ultimately they're participating in our committees too. They're looking at courses associated with plant operators and a wide range of different things associated with geothermal and lithium production and a number of different other areas. So they are looking to move forward. I know San Diego State at the campus in Brawley is also looking forward to developing courses that will service this industry.
Okay. Where should I continue to keep myself updated on this?
I would stay, first of all, I know they both have websites, and so I would stay in contact with the institutions and the universities, and I know the classes are actually being established. I was just told that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, we have a project website also. We want to make sure there's going to be information on that on a regular basis that you can also go to. It's at the County of Imperial, the Lithium Valley website.
Thank you for your time.
Hello, Chris Froelich, 239 East California Street, Calipatria, California. It's great to see a good turnout here. I just had two responses to the previous speaker. One is I've understood the IVC has started an industrial instrumentation class which will really benefit the region, which is positive. And then regarding where can you get information, one thing I wanted to suggest, I'm not sure how appropriate it is for this, is like a visitor center, an information center, that there be one for prospective employees, people coming through wondering, something that could be a place to sort of collectively do things. But the two things I actually came up here for.
By the way, that's an excellent idea, and we'll bring it to the county's information.
It's exciting, and people have questions, and tonight, this is where to get information. Tomorrow, internet and stuff, but it'd be great to have a brick and mortar place. The two things are, one, it's an infrastructure comment. Our community, our disadvantaged community is primarily Calapat and Nyland, and it has the only private, investor-owned, for-profit water treatment plant. And I think what might be a part of the plan would be a regional water plant and a public one. We're the only community in the whole county that has a for-profit water plant. So in addition to the cost of the water, the treatment, distribution, we need to pay the shareholders a good return. So it'd be nice to lose that. And the second comment is, I don't know I've kind of looked, but really don't know where to look, what constitutes a disadvantaged community. We are one. If ever there was a time to lose that designation, I think this master plan may be one component for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Brian Vega. I'm from Holtville. Thank you so much for hosting this event tonight. I have a question, but first I have a comment. One of the things I want to say is it's very clear that you folks are experts in this subject matter, and I think in order to kind of achieve this kind of the initiative behind this event, which is to engage the community, if we could have just maybe have slowed down the presentation for like just a hot second. It was very quick, a lot of information that you're throwing at us, and I'm the kind of person that I got to write it all down. I feel like I got maybe like a fifth out of that. But with regards to, on a similar sense, would this information, like the PowerPoint, be available? And are you guys planning to have kind of like some sort of electronic submissions box for questions as they surface, or anything like that, if that's a part of the initiative?
Yeah, so this meeting is being recorded for the presentation and everything, and that's going to be posted onto the project website. And the project website will also have all of these exhibits with all of the content from the PowerPoint, as well as these with all of the opportunities constraints. That will be posted onto the project website, and then there will also be a way to submit comments on that website.
Great, thank you so much. I have, just one more question.
I want to first of all apologize if we talk, and I know I'm once in a while guilty of speaking too fast, so I want to apologize. But two, the way this is structured, after these questions, you're going to be able to go to that site with a person and just talk to them one-on-one. So I want to make sure you knew that too.
Great. No, thank you for that. And thank you for the clarity. One of the other things I wanted to mention is, so you highlighted in your PowerPoint just the emphasis of being a disadvantaged community and what it means to live within the margins, right? And I know the focus of today is Lithium Valley investment and preparing for what's to come. But within this plan, are we also keeping an open mind about addressing like the infrastructural issues and addressing that sort of title of disinvestment or lack of investment as an aggregate, as it doesn't relate to Lithium Valley, or is it specifically just so to pave the way for industry to kind of come in?
Let me very briefly answer that and also go back to one of the first. You are a disadvantaged community by all definitions in California. So that's a fact. And you all are in an area where there's a health hazard issue in relationship to that. And in relationship to the infrastructure and things like that, whether it's something that's unique to just the specific plan or it works with some of these other communities and investments, that can happen. That's what the studies will all be focused on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fernanda Vega, and I'm from Westmoreland. I had two questions, but first of all, I wanted to thank y'all for having this first meeting here in Calipatre, in the north end of our county. We know that these are the towns that need more of a representation, and I'm just happy that y'all are here. So my first question is, you all did mention that you will be having these courses or these topics embedded into the higher education as an IVC and SDSU, but are there any efforts to try and interest the high school students at a high school level or perhaps at a junior high level?
The answer is yes, and as a matter of fact, just like we're holding this meeting here, and we've talked about trying to do some meetings at your local high schools where we can, engage the students and possibly during the school program and talk about what's going on. And it's our experience that ultimately that engagement will help engage also the families. So we're very open to that and doing other presentations at the school level, and maybe Calipatria, if there's somebody from the school here, can talk to me afterwards and say, hey, I'd like you to do a presentation. I'll gladly volunteer to make sure we do it.
Thank you. And then my other question was, maybe y'all won't be able to answer it, but you did mention that you were working with environmental justice organizations. Do you already know who you'll be working with? And is there any more information on that?
We do, but I'm going to actually ask you there, see that over in the back of the group right there, they're our environmental justice consultant, and I want you to go to their station and talk to them, and they'll tell you the different groups we've already been discussing, and we'll move forward.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Maria Nava-Froelich, Mayor of the City of Calipatria, and we want to thank you for hosting the Lithium Project EIR here in our beautiful city of Calipatria. So I have a couple questions. First of all, you are conducting a programmatic EIR. I want to see if you can summarize what that means. I know that it's a programmatic environmental impact report, but for the general public. And then also, I understand that there's already a lithium extraction pilot project that's called Cal Energy Region 1. So I'm wondering why an EIR was not done for that one, and then how far along is that one coming along as far as the pilot project, and what are the impacts with that? The other item that I want to share is the concern in regards to the water. Golden State Water is our treatment facility here for the city of Calipatria. So I'm wondering if you could explain where you're going to be getting the water from, because you obviously do need it. The other item that I wanted to share was in regards to the environment. I understand there's a lot of chemicals that are going to be used, and I want to make sure that that we don't just sacrifice, the lithium, the community benefits, which we're all hoping for, but we don't want to do it at the expense of the general public. The health and safety should come first. And so if you could just generalize on some of those items, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Really, real quickly, first of all, the programmatic environmental impact report is a form of environmental analysis allowed under the California Environmental Quality Act. It really, when we're doing a site like this, which is 50,000 acres, and you don't have an immediate project, basically this looks at everything from the general standpoint of that. Now, we are also going to do a more focused study on approximately 10,000 acres where these projects that actually are moving forward, and we'll have more data that ultimately lets us really look at more of a project level analysis. And the project level analysis looks at the individual power plants, looks at the lithium operation, and may look actually at the any manufacturing that we're going to be doing. There are certain projects already moving forward that actually are doing those EIRs, and they will be coming out for public review. The pilot program, I may look to Jim to see if he can answer that in the very near future, because Jim, you ran away from me, because I can't tell you the exact environmental status of the pilot program. But after this is through, I'm going to recommend we go over to Jim and take that, and he'll answer that. Water treatment, and water treatment is, I think, is one of the key issues that we're looking at, in water supply. And we know conservation is a part of an opportunity for that, but it's a very big issue right now in this whole area, and how it fits into the overall Salton Sea. And the environmental impacts associated with health, that's why we're doing two separate studies associated with that. One associated with the environmental impact report, and then two, a separate one, which is a health impact assessment, looking at these communities and how and if this project or any future projects will damage that health. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks. Hi, Christina Marquez. I'm with IBEW Local 569. We're the Electrical Workers Union. I'm the environmental organizer. I'm also a journeyman and went through the apprenticeship in San Diego. So my first question to you is, how many direct and indirect jobs will this bring to Imperial County? Also, So we have an apprenticeship out here in Imperial. It's on Imperial Business Park. And we have over 600 members with IBEW 569 here in Imperial County alone. We're looking to build on that. These are high road, high wage careers, not just jobs, careers. And we're looking forward to collaborating with CTR and BHE to hopefully come up with a project labor agreement. We've been trying to negotiate with them, and that still hasn't happened. But we, with these project labor agreements, this will ensure, one, which is the most important for everybody here, I'm assuming, is local hire. There's a requirement in these project labor agreements that will ensure that people that live here are doing the work. We don't want people from out of state doing the work. Number two, we want to make sure that there's the BIPOC communities, which is Black, Indigenous, and people of color that are hired, veterans, women. So we want to give these opportunities with these high-paying jobs with full family health care benefits and tuition-free if they get into the apprenticeship. So that's been really important for us to make sure that there's people in here in the community that benefit from this in all trades, not just the electrical industry, because this is a building trades opportunity for everybody here in the community. So hopefully you can answer that, at least the direct and indirect jobs.
You know, and I will tell you that that's one of the key questions that we're trying to get an answer to. Right now, with the capacity of the land, we know that the jobs could be in the thousands and things like that. We need to understand more of the technology in relationship to the lithium extraction and then ultimately the wide variety of jobs and opportunities there are for manufacturing. Because ultimately we start with the concept of, hey, well, we'll make batteries. And everybody knows right now there's really competition in the world, and then we're not doing much here in the United States. So there's obviously a need there. But there's an opportunity, we think, to really go in and make a lot of other things associated with that that could service the overall clean energy industry in relationship to that, even to the point of saying, could we make cars? And so ultimately, I think that is one of the great questions that I have to be able to answer at the end. I do think the opportunity with over 50,000 acres is very, very sizable in relationship to that, and they will be good paying jobs.
Yeah, my name is Brian. I live in Slab City. I do freelance reporting. I remember I asked at the last meeting, kind of similar to what the mayor of Calipatria said about the water usage and the chemicals that were used. And I actually spoke to BHE personally there, and they didn't give me any information. They said that the chemicals are all proprietary and you can't even get them. Now, how does that work out for environmental? Do you guys have a copy of all the chemicals they use?
Well, let me respond to that question if I could. The answer is not at this time, but ultimately we're going to have to look at not just what they're doing for the lithium extraction and for the other aspects, but also the manufacturing. And that's what this aspect is, really understanding all the detail and then creating documents that have to disclose that aspect. We don't have it today, but that'll be part of the process when it goes out for public review.
Like she was saying, it's already been going on for like 6 months, this pilot project, right? 6 months, 7 months probably right by now. It was 6 months at the meeting that was there. So this is almost the year that they're up on it. So there's potentially millions of dollars of lithium that they already extracted out of there.
Yeah. What I directed the last one, as I said, Jim Minnick is really here, and actually he has the areas over here. And I don't have, and we're not really studying that pilot project, but we can ask him when we break into the general session of it really talking. He's going to be available to answer the question about, also including the environmental analysis on it. Seeing no other questions, now I want to break into the area where you please go to the stations, and we have people standing at all the stations that ultimately can answer and respond to questions, but also take your comments. And so, because that's what a lot of this is about getting your comments on our various charts. And so there's people at each station from the County of Imperial, from my staff, and then also from DUDEC. So we've received that, and also I want to make sure you know there's also food and drink in the back if you haven't had it. Thank you very much, and then we'll come back and close out the session at 8 o'clock. Thank you.